Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, I know I didn't push out any content yesterday. Part of that was because I was taking a day to recuperate, taking a day to, kind of collect my thoughts, think about some other things to talk about, or maybe expand upon something that I already brought up in a little bit more depth. And the more I kept thinking about it, the more I kept going over it in my brain, and also having a conversation with a friend of mine. I won't reveal who it is because I don't have their permission to reveal who they are. But the conversation itself, I'm going to gloss over a little bit, and we're going to have a conversation about that. And that conversation has to deal with directly the whole situation with Hendon Hooker. Yes, I already talked about the fact that Hendon Hooker is probably, done as the backup quarterback. Chances are he's not going to get another shot realistically to, be the Lions' backup quarterback, because the last two preseason games have been just, downright disastrous for when Hooker has been in at quarterback. And, that's one thing to talk about. But for this particular conversation, what we're going to talk about is we're going to also talk about how, you have this specific problem and nobody really seems to know what the hell the problem is. Nobody really seems to understand why the problem is even there in the first place. And the more you think about it, the harder you delve into it, it seems like, okay, here, there's got to be something missing. There's got to be something where what's going on does not make sense unless you start really delving into things that point to a really, really big issue, a really deep issue that's going on here. And when you start thinking in those terms, you start actually getting into a point where it's like, okay, here, maybe we need to have a more serious conversation about what is actually going on here. Let's just call it for what it is. As much as I'm not trying to, make this all about, just down on Hendon Hooker, this, that, and the other thing, make him sound like something, completely negative. But the point of the matter is that based on the evidence, based on the past information that we have, based upon the current information that we have, based upon what we've seen of him this year and last year, based upon all of the incidents that have happened that have a direct correlation to him. And when I say incidents, I'm not saying anything that's of a bad nature as far as things that he's done wrong. I'm saying that things have happened that directly are a reflection or a correlation to him. Let's first and foremost understand that the whole situation with Hendon Hooker all gets started because of two primary things that happened as soon as the Lions drafted him. Number one, drafting Hendon Hooker was a signal from the Detroit Lions and a fulfillment that Brad Holmes specifically stated that they were going to address to improve the backup quarterback position. Why? Because of everything that had happened over the last couple of years as far as, okay, we've got these guys that we have brought in and we are not getting what we're looking for. We are not getting the results that we're wanting out of our backup quarterbacks. Didn't matter if it was Tim Boyle. Didn't matter if it was Nate Sudfeld. Didn't matter if it was David Blau. Every single one of those guys that the Lions had tried was not coming anywhere close to getting the results the Lions wanted. Which was why Brad Holmes specifically stated, we are going to try and improve. We are going to make an effort to work on getting our backup quarterback room solved. Trying to get it better. So drafting Hendon Hooker was the direct fulfillment of that intended promise of saying, hey, we realize that this is not going the way we want it to. We are going to take a direct intervention to try and fix this. That was what drafting Hendon Hooker was in regards to the Lions organization, in regards to Brad Holmes, in regards to the actual higher-ups realizing, okay, we need to take a direct step to try and fix this from another outside perspective rather than just signing free agent quarterbacks that are veterans and thinking that's going to be the only solution we've got. That was part one. But the second part of why the situation with Hendon Hooker is the way that it is because of, and I'm not trying to start anything, I'm just basing everything off of facts. It comes from the fans. It comes from the fans. I don't care what people want to try and say. I don't care how much they want to try and change the narrative that was spun as soon as it happened. But there were so many Lions fans that as soon as Hendon Hooker got drafted, they all wanted to say the same thing. This guy's going to be the next franchise quarterback. Jared Goff's time is done. Hendon Hooker is going to be the next starter. As soon as that thought process got started, it spread like damn wildfire. There were so many Lions fans that were so high on Hendon Hooker. There were so many Lions fans that had all this expectation for him. And nobody wanted to stop for just half a damn second to realize that by doing so, you were already putting him in a very, very difficult position to try and actually fulfill. And again, the reason I knew this is because, one, if you'd actually listened to what Brad Holmes had said, if you'd actually listened to what Dan Campbell had said, if you'd actually paid attention to what the Lions had been doing over the previous 2 seasons up until that point, the Lions had made it abundantly clear that Jared Goff was going to be their guy. The moves that they had made, the acquisitions that they had acquired, the conversations, the quotes, the statements that they had made about Goff, pretty much 100% put it out there, he is our guy. That's not going to change. But no matter how much I tried to point that out, there were so many people that did not want to hear that. And so when Hooker got drafted, there were a lot of people that instantly said, Hendon Hooker's going to be the guy. Hendon Hooker's going to be the one that takes over for Goff. Goff's time is limited now. He's only got another year or two really before Hendon Hooker takes over. Because that's all it's going to take for Hendon Hooker to get ready to be a starting NFL quarterback in the NFL. Because there's no reason why they would draft a 25-year-old rookie just to have him sit on the bench. They're drafting him because of all the experience that he's accumulated in the NCAA. They're drafting him because of what he was able to do in the NCAA, particularly that last season before he got injured. That's why they're drafting him. They don't trust Goff. They want a guy that's more athletic. They want a guy that's able to expand the offense more. That's what Lions fans wanted to tell. A lot of them anyway. That's what a lot of media analysts in the NFL and also with the Lions wanted to say. That was the whole narrative once it got started. And once it got started, there was no stopping it. Didn't matter how much I wanted to point out that it wasn't the case. Didn't matter how much I wanted to point out that that was not the facts, because that was not at all what Campbell or frickin' Holmes had said. Which then brings us to the current day. Hendon Hooker has now been able to, go through 2 off seasons where, hey, you know what? He can fully participate. He can participate in team drills. He can participate in individual drills. He's not limited by his injury. He has the full capability to actually, do on-the-field tasks and drills. We're talking about this current one. We're talking about last one. We're talking about 2024. So yeah, this one hasn't finished, but he's been able to do everything. OTAs, he's been able to, work in the off-season when he's not been with the team. He's been able to work on all of that. And yet, here we are, 2025, we're halfway through the preseason. Halfway. 2 games have already been played for the Lions. So it's 2 more weeks, and then that's it. We're off to the races. Regular season starting. And yet, Hendon Hooker has not shown nearly almost any progression this preseason from the last preseason. In fact, if you want to be entirely, brutally, 100% cold stone Austin, freaking truthful about the matter, it actually appears that he has regressed. Because think about it. There's been no improvement in his ball placement. Absolutely none. He still is overthrowing receivers, leading them too far, throwing the ball high, throwing the ball low. Then you talk about accuracy overall. It's still below average. It's still not where it needs to be. Then you start getting into more overall basic mistakes, such as he's not able to read the defenses very well. He doesn't understand checks. He's not able to keep the ball overly secure while he has it in his hands. This is basic quarterbacking 101 stuff. And yet there's no progression or very little progression from a guy who has had all this starting experience in the NCAA, who has been behind one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, who has had the same quarterbacks coach since he got into the NFL, and also had the ability to work with another top overall draft pick quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. Think about that. Think about how many resources that he has had to his, ability to get better in terms of having Mark Brunell as a quarterbacks coach, having Jared Goff as the guy in front of him, having Teddy Bridgewater to also work with him for 2 years. And yet, we're still not seeing the progress. We're not seeing the development. And then you start getting into the decision-making problems. I've said it before with Jared Goff. Jared Goff is one of the fastest, if not the fastest processor in the NFL, and not only understanding what the defense is doing, where he needs to go with the ball, and just absolutely killing it. But when you talk about Hendon Hooker, his processing, his decision-making, it is slow and it is often incorrect. It is not the correct decision on the first try. That right there is like, okay, you have mechanical problems. You have intangible problems. Now we're talking about decision-making problems as far as mental acuity to understand what your specific job is as far as knowing where you need to go with the ball, understanding what the defense is trying to do to the offense, making sure you're putting that offense in its proper place to actually, do what it needs to do, to actually be able to go up against that defense. And then you start talking about other little problems. Go back to the game we just played against the freaking Falcons. Multiple times when Hendon Hooker is trying to, salvage a play, he's not keeping his eyes downfield as far as trying to find wide receivers that are open. As soon as he runs into any trouble, the first thing he's trying to do is scramble. This is college quarterbacking. That's what that is. Because college quarterbacks, 90% of them, as soon as they feel the pressure, as soon as they feel the play is starting to break down, they do not try and look for somebody down the field to actually throw the ball. They're trying to scramble. They're trying to make a play. Well, in the NFL, you are supposed to scramble second, look to throw ball first. That's what you're supposed to do. Why? Because of 2 reasons. One, chances are you're going to make a better play throwing the ball rather than running it, but also it keeps the quarterback safe. Which then leads me to the other problems with Hendon Hooker. He does not slide when he's trying to scramble. This is a problem that goes back to last year. I remember specifically that Dan Campbell stated that they want to make sure that Hendon Hooker understands you have to slide when you are scrambling. Do not try to be a macho man out there and try to bulldoze over people. But yet, take a look at the first 2 preseason games this year. That's exactly what he is still doing. He's still trying to bulldoze over people rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to play it safe. I'm not trying to put myself in harm's way. In fact, think about this. It almost seems like he's actively seeking out contact. It's like he's actively seeking out getting tackled. That right there is a problem. Because any NFL pro quarterback will tell you this right now. If it's going to be you versus a linebacker and a safety, 90% of the time, you are not going to win. And 90% of the time, it's going to wind up with you getting hurt somehow. And then you have to think about it also when he's trying to scramble around and then, all that other crap. He's not learned how to throw the ball away. I can't recall a time where I think I've seen Hendon Hooker actively throw the ball away. I can't remember a time. Because one of 2 things is usually going on. Either he's scrambling trying to pick up yards with his legs and then trying to, take on somebody macho man style, or he throws the ball and it's not anywhere close to the receiver and it still winds up being an incomplete pass. That right there is, again, showing that he does not understand that, sometimes the better thing to do is just live to fight another down. That's what happens when hey, he's trying to scramble also, because sometimes it's like, hey, just take the damn sack. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't put the offense in a further bad position by jeopardizing things. Sometimes the better thing overall is just to take the sack, just to take the bad play for what it is, and live to fight another down. Don't force a potential turnover, whether it's an interception or a fumble, but yet again, that's not what Hendon Hooker's doing. And like I said, after 2 off seasons in which he's been actively able to participate, plus if you go back to the very first year that he was here back in 2023, he had all that time to sit and, stand back and, take those mental reps, learning from Goff, learning from Bridgewater, learning from, also, Mark Brunell. So he's had 3 off seasons in which 2 of which he can fully participate, one where he had to primarily learn by watching and taking mental reps, and yet he is still incapable of learning the quarterback job at the NFL pace and standard. Think about that. And this is not a guy who came out of college who had barely any college experience. The guy was a starter for multiple years, was in the NCAA for at least 5 of those years, came in as a 25-year-old individual. By 25, most NFL quarterbacks have had at least 2 or 3 years of experience. So it's like, okay, you're not coming into this, green-eyed and, blue, and green around the gills and have no experience whatsoever in actually playing the position. You've spent a number of years being in the NCAA. You should be able to understand this a lot better than, a rookie that's only been, playing maybe 2 or 3 years. You've had 5. And on top of that, you're more older. You're supposed to be more mature. You're supposed to understand things better. But yet, we're still seeing the same incapacity to understand what he needs to do out on the field. And when I was having that conversation with my friend that I highlighted earlier, that I talked about earlier, I specifically was being asked about, why do I think that's the case? And I made a connection. I tried to draw a parallel about how, coaching is very much like teaching and parenting. Think about it from that perspective. How many times probably Mark Brunell, Dan Campbell, maybe even Goff or Bridgewater have tried to tell him, listen, these are the ways you need to do this. If you want to get better, if you want to progress, if you want to have a chance to earn your own starting job someday or get better quality reps so that way you can show your talents to other teams in the NFL, you need to do it this way. And yet, all we keep seeing is the exact same nonsense that he's been doing for years. Even going back to when he was in college. And think about it this way. Remember when you were in school, or remember when you were a kid, and your teacher or your parent would be like, hey, you know what? This is how you need to do this. Whether it was a problem, whether it was a chore, whether it was an expectation, whatever the hell case might have been. Well, also remember this. There's only so many times that a teacher or a parent is going to tell you something before they're just like, okay, you are clearly not listening. Either you're choosing not to listen or you are just not getting what I'm trying to tell you. And there's only so many times and so many ways that you can try and explain something to somebody before you're just like, okay, here. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know how else I can get you to understand this, but you are not clearly grasping the concept here. And then that starts leading into this uncomfortable situation that the Lions are in with Hendon Hooker. Because you have to think about it. Everything I just laid out, 100% factual. Based upon the evidence that we have, based upon what we've seen in preseason games, based upon what we've heard in practices. So think about this. Just to kind of, point this out there, pull it out there. Is it possible that Hooker is passively choosing not to follow the instructions? I don't think that's the case. But you have to seriously ask yourself that question based upon what's been going on. Because it's like, I don't doubt that Hendon Hooker is an intelligent individual. I know he's an intelligent individual. He has to be. So it's like, okay, here. You have the intelligence, you have the mental acuity, you have all of these things going in your favor. But yet every time we see you out on the field, you're not putting things into practice. You're not following the instructions. So it leads me to one of 2 conclusions. Are you choosing not to listen? Are you choosing not to do those things? Or is it the fact that you are uncoachable because you yourself cannot grasp it? And what do I mean by grasping it? Let's understand something here. it is something for an analyst or somebody who's never played football to try and talk about this. I have played football. I was a quarterback. I was not a pro quarterback. I was not a D1 quarterback. I was an MIAA quarterback. But I can tell you this right now. When you are back there and you are the only fool that's back there and every defensive lineman or linebacker knows you're back there and they're coming for you and you've got maybe 3 to 5 seconds if you're lucky to try and get rid of that ball and all hell's breaking loose around you, you got to be able to think on your feet damn fast. You have to know exactly what the hell it is you need to do. You've got to have a lightning processor to say, okay, if I see this, this is what I do. If I see that, this is my response. So what I'm getting at here is with the uncoachable factor is not necessarily that maybe he's not willing to learn, but maybe the fact is he can't learn it. Because when you are back there and you're seeing all hell break loose and chaos is ensuing around you and you've got to think on your feet and you've got 3 to 5 seconds at most to try and make it happen, you've got to know exactly how to react. Well, if all you're doing is the same thing you've been doing since you were in college and that's the only reaction style you know, and the NFL is playing at a much higher level, much more complex, much more in-depth level, and you're still trying to do the same stuff you did in college, that's not going to work. And if you're not able to apply the lessons, apply the tactical advice that the coaches and other guys around you are trying to give you, that's where the uncoachable factor comes in. And it's not because of a malicious intent from Hendon Hooker. I'm not saying that at all. But some guys just simply cannot piece everything together. There's a reason why they say the quarterback position is the hardest position in football to learn. It's not just throwing the ball. It's not just being the guy standing up there and being the only one that anybody notices. It's everything you have to do as soon as you step out on the field because it's the pre-snap reads, it's the pre-snap protection, shifts. It's understanding what the defense is trying to do to you. Okay, now you've done that. Now you snap the ball and you've got to, take a look downfield, observe and take care of it, take in all that information, and then you've got to make a decision before you got a 300 plus pound defensive lineman or 225, 250 pound plus linebacker trying to snap you like a damn twig. Some guys just cannot process that fast. Some guys are not able to do that. And that's where the uncoachable factor comes in for me. It's like, listen, it's not that he doesn't have the talent, but I don't think that Hendon Hooker has the mental capacity as far as being able to take in all that information while it's happening and making it actually work. That's one of the things that I keep wondering. Another possible thing to consider is, as I've seen a lot of other comments brought up, is that, you know what? Maybe the problem is that Hendon Hooker's just not a simple fit for the offense that the Lions run, which that definitely has a lot of damn merit. Again, I said this when Hendon Hooker got drafted. He is coming from a spread-based offense. The spread-based offense is not based upon timing. It's not based upon rhythm. It's not based upon precision. It is based upon trying to get the wide receiver spread out as much as possible, creating these huge holes in defensive coverage, so that way it allows the maximum grace and ability for a quarterback to be able to get the ball to the wide receiver. Which, you know what that does? Is it covers up accuracy concerns. It covers up ball placement concerns. It makes it easier for the quarterback to be able to read the defense because it's like, hey, instead of basing everything off of timing and rhythm, you're just looking for these big-ass holes in the zone, and you're throwing it there, and your wide receiver is supposed to be there. There's not much reading. There's not much precision. It's just throw the ball to where you see an open zone, and your guy should be there. In the NFL, that does not work. Everything in the NFL is based off of timing. It's based off precision. It's based off of rhythm. If you cannot get that down, I don't care what physical talent you possess, you're not going to work. That's why guys have not been able to make the transition from college that possessed all the physical God-given talent in the world because they couldn't make it work up here in this one square foot of real estate called their cranium. And it's not to say that they're dumb. It's just to say they can't process that information at that speed. There's a reason why there's only 32 NFL starting quarterbacks. It is a ridiculously difficult task to try and do. And when you've got a guy that you drafted in the third round and you've been putting all this time, all this effort, all these resources in, And you're still not seeing the results that you're looking for after drafting him in the 3rd round when there were so many analysts that thought he could go in the 1st round, and this is what you're getting, this is what you're seeing? It signals that there's a deeper issue going on here. It signals that there's a bigger problem. And the one thing I haven't even talked about is another thing I've seen other NFL fans consider. Is there a problem with Brad Holmes being able to actually effectively evaluate quarterbacks? Because let's think about this here. The only quarterback that Brad Holmes has effectively and accurately gotten correctly was Jared Goff. That's it. And Jared Goff absolutely has been a home run since he got into the NFL. Already been to a Super Bowl, been to multiple Pro Bowls, has NFL records, franchise records with both with the Rams and with the Lions, has helped resurrect the Lions, called the Prince of Detroit. I mean, that's been a home run for Brad Holmes. Twice, because he drafted him and then he traded for him. But since then, free agent quarterbacks have not worked. The drafting of Hendon Hooker has been almost an emphatic failure. So it really starts making you beg the question of, okay, here, not only do we have the problem with Hendon Hooker, but is there a potential problem with Brad Holmes' ability to actually find a quarterback that will work with the offense that they're trying to run? Because it's like, when Hendon Hooker was coming out of college, everybody knew he played in that spread offense. He did not have a lot of experience when he was at West Virginia or Virginia Tech, whichever one it was. I know it was in Virginia, as far as understanding pro-offensive concepts. But Brad Holmes still drafted him anyway. And I believe the reason why that was the case is because they believed, based upon the physical talent that he possessed and the potential that he could use, that they could fit him and mold him into this position that they're trying to. And as it's clearly being shown, it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It's not working. It's painful to watch. It's painful to observe. And it's very clearly obvious that there is something massively wrong. That's why I believe that Kyle Allen's going to win the job. Because Kyle Allen knows how to run an NFL offense. He's done it before. He did it with absolute precision and execution in the Falcons game. Even Dan Campbell said that. He said, man, that guy went out there and absolutely did an excellent job. Stepped right in when we needed something, got the offense rolling. Excellent job by him. Said that himself. So yeah, there's a bigger issue going on here. There's a deeper problem here. And to me, it's like, okay, you've got to really start having some very serious, very unpleasant conversations about this Hendon Hooker situation, because it really opens up a whole nasty can of worms that some people are not wanting to have just yet. But as I've said before, I'm not going to shy away from that stuff because it's stuff that needs to be talked about. But anyway, I've said my piece. Do with this information what you will. Some people, I think, are going to find it informative, enlightening. Some people are going to probably hate me for it. Some people are going to think that, you know what, interesting conversation. But we'll see what you think. Having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. But if you actually enjoyed the content, you liked it, I hope to gain your subscription if I have not done so already. But I also hope that if you just subscribed or you've subscribed in the past and you've not yet done so, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any more content that I push out. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope y'all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.